Hi, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. We are going to be answering all your questions tonight. My name is Gene Kelly. I'm president of the American Gunsmithing Institute, and the purpose of this meeting is just to have an open session where you can ask any question you want about becoming a gunsmith, setting up your shop, getting your FFL, course of study, what to learn, all of that. I myself am a gunsmith. Been a gunsmith now for about 40 years, a little bit better than that actually. And I studied under Grandmaster Bob Dunlap, who was the senior instructor at Lassen College Gunsmithing School, and he developed the design, function, and repair system that we teach. So if you'd like to ask questions, right down there at the bottom is a little button where you can ask questions. Please do, and we'll take all of those. Just a little quick background is, like I said, if you're just coming in, I'm Gene Kelly, president of the American Gunsmithing Institute, and I want to really focus this on answering questions that you have about your own path of getting started as a gunsmith. And it can be anything about, what to study, how to study, what equipment you need, licensing, anything like that. Happy to help you out. And let's go ahead and get started. So, question from Scott. He's got a couple of them here. Good questions, Scott, all of them. Questions about the FFL. Should I have an LLC with a business name before getting the FFL? Should I use my home address for the FFL? Can you add a business name later to the FFL? Can the address be changed on the FFL? And can I have more than one FFL? All good questions. So let's kind of hit them in a row there. The reason to have an LLC or a corporation, S corporation, any C corporation, whatever, is primarily from the individual standpoint to provide protection and a separation of assets of your business from your personal. So by setting up an LLC or an S corporation, you have now all the business assets and liabilities within that corporation. A corporation is considered a person from a legal standpoint. And so if something were to go really wrong, someone could sue that person, but they would then have to penetrate the corporation, the corporate shell is one way they put it, to get to any of your personal assets. So it's not a bad idea to do that from the get-go. Now I got to tell you, when I was starting off, I didn't do that because I didn't have a lot of assets. And if you do have assets, then it's a good idea. It's not very expensive to put together an LLC or an S corporation. I did my first one myself, literally typed it out. And you can find places online, you can get it done very inexpensively, or you can engage an attorney. I'm not an attorney, and anything I say can and will be used against me. No. I'm just offering my personal experience. I'm not offering any legal advice. But I've had an FFL, again, for 40 some years, and I've gone through several different versions of it, both being just an 01 regular dealer, to being an 07 manufacturer, to being a 07 with a SOT, Special Occupational Taxpayer stamp, which allows me to work on and build NFA weapons. So I've got a pretty broad experience in this. So should I use my home address for the FFL? Well, that depends. It depends upon where you want to operate from. So in most areas, you can still get a business license doing services from your home. And if that's your situation, you want to work from your home, then your FFL must be at your home. If you want to be working from a commercial location, then that's where your FFL must be. If you want to split a shop with somebody and somebody else is a dealer and they have their regular dealer business and you're just doing the gunsmithing part of it, then you can either work under their license or you can have your own license at that same location. I know some locations that are set up specifically because of security and bookkeeping to where there's multiple licenses at the same location. So you can do that. Can you add a business name later to the FFL? Well, you can change and amend your FFL anytime you need to. However, you may be in a position where you can't continue to operate until you get that updated FFL. It depends. When you change, a name, that's something you don't want to do lightly, and particularly if ownership or responsible party changes, you totally have to notify ATF of that. So you would have to notify ATF of any name change or any address change. And there are regulations about those. They're very straightforward. You can go on ATF's website or look in the regulation books and get all the details there. Can you have more than one FFL, he asks? And the answer is yes. You can have more than one location. So our corporation has more than one FFL location. Why? Because we're operating in more than one state, filming videos, receiving firearms, and so on, and we want to do everything perfectly legal. So we have an FFL in each of those locations, and that works well for us. Most of you would only want one FFL, and higher level FFLs allow for lower level activities. So if you have a manufacturer type 07 license, you can still buy and sell firearms the same as a 01 regular dealer would be. And by the way, there is no separate license for gunsmiths. We have and operate under those same two primary license numbers, which is the 01, a regular dealer's license. That's what most gunsmiths are doing, and an 07 manufacturing license for people that want to be manufacturers. Francis is asking, Chicago doesn't allow FFL. Is there any way around that? Well, I will say this. There's always a way around everything if you're willing to jump through the hoops. Sometimes you got to be a little creative. Sometimes you got to make the right contacts or create the right contractual relationships. So I'm sure that there probably is a way, even in Chicago, maybe not at a residence, maybe it has to be at a commercial location. But if you want this bad enough, you'll find a way. Also, I don't know how far away you are from the next city, county, or whatever, but that's a consideration as well. People commute for jobs all the time. Maybe it's worth commuting if it's easier for you to get the license that you want. I would also say that, it's a business and you'll have to factor those things in, but a commercial address oftentimes is not that expensive because most gunsmithing shops can work fine in a 10 by 10 room or a 10 by 20. You could find some space to lease or subcontract. Those are all appropriate as long as you can secure the firearms and make sure that you have control of everything in your books and your records. So Scott is asking, what size of building should I look at? Retail sales, classroom, repair shop. The measurements in 1/1000th of an inch, are they hard to do? Where to purchase gun kits? Wow. Okay, 3 different questions, all good ones, Scott. Number one, you have to have a vision for your business. And sometimes you have to take baby steps in doing that. You may want to be a full-on manufacturer with a huge indoor range and training facility and so on. And unless you have the financial resources or the partners to do that, you might want to take that in a few baby steps. So let me talk about the range of what you can do. If you guys have seen the video that's at gunsmithing seminar.com, gunsmithingcourse.com, excuse me, gunsmithingcourse.com. There we have Ken Brooks do a tour of his shop. And the main area that he works in is about 10 feet wide by about 20 feet long. And that is where he does like 80–90% of his work. The only work that he doesn't do in there is what we call dirty work, which is TIG welding and buffing and grinding. And then he has a separate area for his big lathes. His little lathe is in that shop area. He does about 1,000 guns a month, 10 to 12,000 guns a year from that little shop. And so you don't need a huge space. Now, if you're going to have a retail outlet, in addition to that, buying and selling guns, you kind of have to map out the space that you need. But there's different philosophies about that. And I teach in our FFL profit systems a way to sell that is a better way to sell. Now, most shops open their door and they're broke every day when they open, right? They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know who's going to walk in the door or anything. And then when people do walk in the door, they walk in, they wander around, and they walk out. That's not the best way to do it. The best way is to have an appointment situation where people come in, they're serious, they're focused, you're serious, you're focused with them, and you're able to sit down and do the whole process and get them what they need. You can do it in a little more upscale environment. I go deep into that through some of the training we do, but I just want to give you an idea that there's different approaches for different applications and what you want to achieve. Do you want the traditional gun store where people wander in and out, you have conversations across the counter and so on? Or if you want to make more money in this business, you want to have more control over that, and you can actually drive people to appointments, almost like it with a high-end jewelry store. You know, low-end jewelry store, you just walk in, wander around. What do you want? Oh, I'm just looking. High-end jewelry stores where people are buying $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, etc. That's done generally by appointment, and it's done in a little private booth off the side. So gunsmithing wise too, if you're just doing run-of-the-mill, whatever comes over the counter, you can do that. But you can also have a systematic approach to bringing work in that minimizes the wasted amount of time and maximizes your opportunity to make money. And here's something, guys, you should write down and go take a look at. It is proguncleaningsystem.com. proguncleaningsystem.com. Hopefully I got that right. And it shows you a little short 5-minute video on how to use an ultrasonic system to make more money and to use it as a way to bring business in the door. Okay, so that size of business building, you can do gunsmithing on a 6 or 8 foot bench in your garage. You can do gunsmithing in a 10 by 20 room and do a lot of volume. You can do gunsmithing with a full machine shop, but you don't need it. In fact, that's probably one of the biggest fallacies. People think you got to have a lathe and a mill right to start off with, and you do not. In fact, you need basic hand tools, a couple of simple, not real expensive power tools, and you need to understand design, function, repair, so you can make the appropriate repairs. Then later, you can get a bigger lathe, a barreling lathe, a mill, and so on. So you do not need this stuff right away. Where to purchase gun kits? We've got a number of different places we will tell you about that we include with our course information about where to get gun parts, variety of places, where to get access to gunsmithing tools, and a lot of things like that. So we provide a ton of information in the courses, and through the Gunsmithing Club of America, you might see it right there, Gunsmithing Club of America, which is a sister organization of the American Gunsmithing Institute. Every month we put out a 2-hour DVD magazine and have all this information online, literally almost 200 disassembly, reassembly courses, tool reviews, techniques, forums for doing, getting questions asked by newer gunsmiths from people that have experience in other areas, and so on and so on. That is something we include a year membership with when you become a student. So there's a lot of different ways we provide you with the knowledge you need. John's asking, what do you think will happen as far as gun control when Biden gets in? Will there be a need for any new gunsmiths to start taking over our guns? I've had the same conversation for 40 years with people, and the need for gunsmiths is greater now than it ever has been. And I believe it will continue to be for several reasons. Number one, these guys have tried again and again and again to take our firearms, and we do have a Second Amendment. And thankfully, we've got a Supreme Court that at the moment is going to defend that right. But more than that, even in closed societies like Europe and so on, where it's very difficult to get firearms, gunsmiths make a good living because firearms that people have, they can't easily just go buy another one at Walmart. So they maintain them. There are somewhere around, I've been quoting the number 350 million firearms in the United States for years. I just saw a recent report where now they bumped that to about 385 million. And Lord knows, I mean, there are millions of guns that were made in the last century that were never serialized, and so nobody really knows the total number of firearms out there, but we see the modern reports, and every year millions and even tens of millions of firearms are added to the overall inventory. People love their guns. They're not going to give them up, and they are also going to want to get them repaired, maintained, and customized. So yeah, there's still a good opportunity for gunsmiths. What I would encourage you to do is get in now, get your FFL now, because when you're on the inside, you've got more protection, and it's easier to stay on the inside than later if they throw up some more rules trying to get in later. So, so Derek is asking, who do I contact to find out if my city or county will allow me to open up a gunsmithing shop? We have a complete package on how to get your federal firearms license. And we have done some videos on this as well, where we tell you how to go about the process. Now, it varies a little bit in county and city and state to state, but generally it's going to be whoever controls the business licenses. Some counties, if you're in the county, you don't even need a business license. And if none is required, then you're not restricted at all. ATF will just recognize that none is required in that area. If you are in an area that requires a business license, and most are, then you need to go about it systematically. And one of the first things you need to ask is, is it okay for me to operate a business, a service business, I'm thinking, out of my home? And you don't even need to tell them yet what it is. So there's a process to this, and we give you all the information on that in whenever you enroll in any level of the professional gunsmithing course. We provide you that entire packet. Also, I've heard, typical time we tell everybody is it takes 90 days approximately to get your FFL. Well, we've had some people recently get their FFL in less than a month. And it just depends. If you follow the process, you're going to be able to get your license as long as you're not a felon or a prohibited person. So if you can legally buy a firearm, you should be able to get an FFL. The biggest hurdles are simply going about it properly, and with our package, it's kind of paint by the numbers. It literally, if you go right through it, you'll get through that, as literally thousands of people have. Anonymous is asking, do we offer financing? Well, we offer forms of financing. Okay, we have a monthly payment program, and so the way to get the details on what's going to work for you, your situation, depending on the level of course you want, and so on, is call and talk to your student advisor. Virtually everybody should be assigned when they get an information packet from us. They're assigned to a student advisor. If for some reason you have a conflict and that person isn't working out for you, and sometimes you have personality clashes, no problem. Get a hold of us and we'll reassign you to somebody else. But generally speaking, that person wants to help you, and it works 99% of the time. So call 1-800-797-0867, and you'll be able to get a hold of a student advisor, and they're going to be able to tell you, what your opportunities are. All right. And then Justin Lance is asking, do you think the new administration will try and stop issuing the FFLs? That's a pretty big hurdle for them to do, because, firearms they'd rather have everything go through federal firearms licensees that are honest and properly transact firearms than blow that system up, and people are going to say, fine, I'm just buying and selling and doing. So I don't think that they're going to try and stop issuing licenses. What I think they might do is they might make us jump through some more hurdles. So right now it's very inexpensive. It's like $200 to get your license for 3 years. Okay. So, and a renewal is less than that. So you'll save that much just on being able to buy ammo, being able to buy guns and other accessories. So anyway, again, I strongly recommend you get your federal firearms license right away. And if you enroll in our courses, we give you that information so you can literally get on that right away. And we recommend you do that while you're studying, because when you get your FFL, you can start charging for work. And that really is one of the requirements. If you're going to charge for your work and or hold firearms overnight, you really need to have a federal firearms license. And it's not that big a deal. I've had licenses for over 40 years. I've had good interaction with ATF all along the way. As long as you keep, just decent records, and it's simple. We even provide you the logbook, and you just simply log the guns in and you log them out. You don't send them off to any online database or anything like that. It's just in your paper books. And you can return the guns to somebody. In fact, what's interesting, you can send guns to a gunsmith across the country and have a work done, and they can send it back to you. So it's still a pretty open area. Scott says, thank you. Thank you, Scott. If you have any other questions, keep asking. Oscar says, how does your training system work? Someone starts at level 1, wants to progress at a later time to more advanced trainings. Absolutely. Some people, we have 4 different levels of training. We have what we call the level 1. Level 1 covers design, function, and repair. It is the core bedrock. It's 168 hours of training in pistols and revolvers, shotguns of all action types, centerfire rifles of all action types, rimfires of all action types. And what is really unique is we teach design, function, repair, because if you only learn how to fix, gun A with solution number 1, what do you do when gun B comes in and the solution you learned isn't even close? We teach you systems. There's only so many different types of systems that all the different firearms use. So and we use cutaway guns a lot to show you. So for example, on this is a cutaway, and by demonstrating, now we use close-up video, not just what I'm doing right now with Zoom, but you can see the locking and unlocking. If you were looking close, you could see the trigger bar, and you'd be able to see the sear system and how everything is working internally. So when we teach you about each of the systems, so feeding systems and rules that they need to follow, like the 1.5 to 1 rule on feed ramps, and going through and teaching about firing pin shape, firing pin protrusion, what kind of energy is required, extractors, shape, fit. These are universal to most firearms. So when you learn the systems, you literally should be able to pick up a gun after you've gone through our courses, look at the gun that you've never seen it before, and be able to analyze it and go, okay, I see what type of locking system it uses. I see what kind of feeding system it uses. Okay. I'm understanding the sear system, the firings. Okay, got it. So where's the stoppage? Okay. I understand that the breakdown is happening here. What do I need to do about that? That's gunsmithing. If you don't understand design, function, repair, you are a part swapper. That is what an armor is. They're just a part swapper. They can take a problem here and they've got kind of a factory list of solutions and they can put in a new part, see if it fits it. It doesn't fit it. Try another part. Oh, that doesn't work either. Send it back to the factory. That's an armor. We're gunsmiths. Gunsmiths can make firearms from scratch. I mean, give us a pile of metal and we can make a gun. We understand design and function, so we can look at a firearm, understand the systems, and be able to make that appropriate repair. And that's what Bob Dunlap so uniquely developed a system of teaching. And he's still the core of our course because he's teaching you starting with a 1911 45 automatic, and we go through that platform. Now, John Browning designed that firearm as he did many of the fantastic platforms that are out there. And you'll see as you learn that gun where those same systems, Browning didn't work in a vacuum. He built on his experience, okay? So as he took some of his earlier designs and the things that worked, he moved them over, and the things that could be improved upon, he improved upon. So when you go from the 1911, which uses a link system for the lockup, the pivot, the barrel, and you go to a Browning high power that uses a cam system, you can see the difference and understand the difference. In fact, our approach to teaching is building blocks. So as we teach you each system, one on top of the other, that's how you quickly learn all these different systems and are able to analyze a problem, because you've been exposed to a broad number of systems. And when we do a gun like the 1911, when we go to the high power or go to the Glock or go to the SIG or whatever, we're talking and teaching about the things that are different, not having to go over and over the things that are exactly the same. And that's a huge savings of time. And another thing is our course is master indexed. So if you get a gun in and it's further down your training, you can go ahead and study that area and work on that. Or later when you've gone through the whole course, you say, I know they talked about X, Y, or Z. You can use your index to go back and search it. So back to his question about the levels. A level 1 is design, function, repair. The next level up, level 2, adds in machine shop and some other customizing courses. When you go back to master level, it has everything below that, plus adds welding, business success package, a lot of customizing and so on. You go up to the enhanced master course, and it has a way extended library of an extra almost 200 hours worth of video instruction that you can pick from as you need as you go through your career. So yes, you can, if you enroll at a level 1 and later you want to go to master level or something like that, you just pay the difference between the level 1 and the master. So your investment is secure and you can move up. Okay. Barry Klesch is asking, I need to rebarrel a K98 Mauser. I'm used in 1903 Springfields, the witness marks. How does it work with the Mauser? Thanks. Well, it depends on the Mauser. There's a lot of different Mausers out there. What I'd recommend you look into, and you can find this at AmericanGunsmith.com, is we have an entire course on building custom Mauser rifles. And that is worth 100 times your money, because we go in through all the different action types, how to strip things down, what to look for, what are the considerations in barreling. And, there's a lot to go over there. And so we did an entire course on that. We also have courses on rebarreling, other types of actions like the Remington 700s and so on. Excuse me. Take a little sip here. Okay, so John Hamilton's asking, the area I'm going to move has about 100,000 people, but I don't know how many guns. there are 9 places listed in the area that are having a gunsmith. How many gunsmiths are too many? Well, again, you do not necessarily have to get all your work in your one area. So I'll say several things. One, a lot of existing gunsmiths are very backed up with work. Number two, there's a lot of gunsmiths out there that did not go through our training. And so, okay. Number three, there are, expanding needs for gunsmiths, and more people own firearms. We've had a huge number, millions, they say, of new gun owners just this last year. And last, as I said, you don't have to get all your work from your surrounding area. And in fact, if you end up picking a specialty, you can have guns shipped from all over US coming to you. And we know a number of people, some that build custom Glocks, some that build custom 1911s, some that do custom rifles, some do it for long range shooting, some for lightweight hunting, some for classic design. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And on top of all that, if you do great work, if you take real pride in your work and you work hard to understand what you're doing and the best ways to do it, and you don't do custom work that might look great but doesn't function properly because you know how to actually do the function, remember, design, function, repair, critical, then you're going to get a great reputation. And if you get a great reputation, it's like, think of auto shops around. My town, we're only about 80,000 population, and if I had to guess, I bet you there's 40 or 50 auto shops. I mean, there's a lot. And some specialize more in tires, and some do specialize more in these other things, whatever, but a lot of shops. Well, the ones that have the really great reputations, they're booked up. So the market will determine your success based upon what you determine you want it to be. And you can always find a niche, and you follow your passions, and you do great work, and you will have more work than you probably know what to do with. All right. Do you give mobile MacMan, Tim says, do you give up any rights when you get your FFL? No. There's this idea that ATF can come into your house 24 hours a day and do this or that. No, that's not true. When you fill out your application, and we teach about this, put in the times that you are operating your business. That's the only time that they can come in, unless, of course, you're doing something illegal. I mean, if you're doing something illegal, FFL, no FFL, they can come in and arrest you for that. And so don't do anything illegal. But you are not giving up any rights as a federal firearms licensee. And again, if you want to protect yourself even further by creating an LLC or an S corporation, you can separate your personal assets from your business assets. And really, I'm not aware of any of our gunsmiths that have ever been sued, any of our students. And I've been at this 40 some years, and I've never been sued. My associates haven't been sued. I mean, I know we've got a pretty sue-happy, litigious society, but we've been mostly isolated from that as gunsmiths. And you can get gunsmithing insurance, and you should. It's not very expensive. Okay, and we provide you with information on where to find that as well. Plus, we have ongoing support. So every day, if you need to call up and talk to one of our firearms experts, one of our gunsmiths, for technical support, we'll provide you that. You can call up and you can get to them. We have 2 different people that do that, and they'll help you out and walk you through different issues. In addition, something we offer, nobody else can offer, is one of our gunsmithing companies, one of our gunsmithing instructors. If you have a problem and get yourself boxed into a corner, you can send the firearm to him. He'll fix it. He'll charge you for it. And you'll probably still make a profit on top of that, but he'll tell you what you did wrong or what needed to be done. So it's a learning experience for you, but it gives you the confidence to take everything on. You'll find that you probably never need to send them anything. Most people don't, but it gives them the confidence to get started. Francis McFarlane is asking, do I have to have an FFL to take the course? Was thinking of the course, then opening up shop and taking the course, opening the shop in another city. No, you don't have to have an FFL to take the course. It's just that the sooner you get your federal firearms license, it's going to allow you to buy in guns, to bring in work, to get rolling, and that'll just give you more experience and more real world experience because people will be asking for these different things. So we teach you not only design, function, repair, but we have all these other ancillary courses about customizing and tuning and accurizing and so on that you can get, and those make you money as well. John's asking or stating, I'm going to move in a year, so it'd be better to wait until I move to get my federal firearms license. It depends. It's not that difficult to change a license location. The biggest thing I would say is right now it's very, very easy to get your license. So if you get your license now and it's a little more difficult in a year or two, you'll already have it. And all you need to do is put in your address change, and there's a form for that. So why would you recommend an FFL Type 1 instead of an 07? Well, I don't recommend one versus the other. It's really what you want to do. So if you want to be a manufacturer, then you need to get an 07 license. If you want to manufacture automatic weapons, you need to have a 07 license plus an SOT, special occupational tax pay or stamp, and you're going to have to register with State Department for automatic weapons suppressors. If you just want to manufacture standard firearms, then just an 07 license is perfect. You're going to build hunting rifles, no problem. If you are just general gunsmithing and doing just buying and repairing and fixing guns, buying and selling guns and repairing guns, an 01 license is just fine. So there's a little more paperwork involved with an 07. There's annual production reporting. There's, could be tax involved. So if you produce firearms and you sell the firearms you produce, there's an excise tax on those firearms that you have to report and pay. It's about 11% of what you sell it for. So, there's pros and cons really depending on what you want to do. I would say generally it's a little bit easier to get a 01 license just anywhere versus if you're getting a manufacturing license, they're going to be, and you're in a 10 by 10 room, they're going to be kind of asking, well, how are you going to do this manufacturing? And you can tell, look, right now I'm in the prototyping stage and I'm having some stuff subcontracted, but I'm doing the final work here, making the receiver here, just on my desktop, making a prototype, whatever. And so I need this for my record keeping, what have you. So, it depends on what you want to accomplish. So that's why I recommend you get the FFL package as part of enrolling and go through that. How much do you teach machine shop work online? We have the entire machine shop course on DVD and online. The entire machine shop course starts you off with, this is what a lathe is, and this is how you set it up, and this is what to look for even in a used lathe, all the way through threading, knurling, boring, turning, reaming, all of that. And then we go do the same on a mill, teaching you all the different aspects, including using a digital readout, et cetera, et cetera. And then we teach you all about the support machine shop equipment. So it's very comprehensive, and yet it's less than 30 hours in total study video to teach you all of that. And I've had numerous people tell me that they learned everything they need to know from those courses. In fact, there was an interesting exchange a guy included me in on. Two guys who were manufacturers, custom rifle builders now. One guy said, I learned everything about barreling from Daryl Holland, who is one of our instructors and teaches this machine shop class. And the other guy responded, yeah, well, who didn't? And I mean, it's that prolific out there as far as teaching people that didn't go through some traditional machine shop. So it's very cool. And we do the same thing with welding, by the way. We utilize that close-up video you never get in a classroom, so it's not looking over somebody's shoulder. That's getting in close. And with a lathe, for example, we'll show you the right way and the wrong way. So you'll know when you're making a bad cut because we showed you what a bad cut looked like as well as a good cut. And with welding, we created special filters so you can't look over someone's shoulder and really learn to weld. And I can't hold your arms and your hands and really teach you, how to weld. But when you see the molten puddle filling up the whole screen, and you see the control of the torch and the filler rod and control of the molten puddle, and you go, oh, I got it. We start with gas welding. We take you all the way through gas, stick, MIG, and TIG, and then we go deeper into TIG to also show you TIG welding specifically for gunsmithing. And we teach you about plasma cutting. We use a regular gas torch for cutting. Also, how to set up a welding shop, tour a welding shop. We give you projects, all that. So, every one of our courses was designed with the idea of accomplishing a couple things. One, preserve the knowledge, because a lot of this knowledge is slipping away. Number two, I went through 2.5 years of gunsmithing school, and I went through probably the best, certainly with the best instructor. And yet there was so much wasted time. And I have created a systematic process for compressing that time without all the BS. And the third thing was not everybody could give up their job and go move and travel, go to a gunsmithing school and spend 2.5 years. You don't need to, because what we now teach is better than what I got at that gunsmithing school, because there's more detail in it. One idea goes seamlessly into the next. There isn't the big gaps of, well, you learned something on Tuesday and now on Thursday, you're going to learn the next piece and then the same on the next week and so on. Now you got to connect all those little pieces together. It's one idea flows into the next. The instructors each have such tremendous amount of experience, and they're sharing that with you and sharing all their secrets with you. Why? Because they're wanting to preserve this for the next generation. They're already doing well. They're not worried about you going into competition with them. So all of these things is what created this scenario where we could put this together for people. Okay. Chris Gonzalez is asking, what is the amount of time it take to become a certified gunsmith through AGI's course? Depends on the level. Again, master is going to take you quite a bit longer than level 1. But level 1 is the design, function, repair, and you are a certified gunsmith at that point. We've had people go through it in as little as 90 days, and more typical, I would say 6 months to 9 months. It really depends on how motivated you are and how much time you have available, because you do need to study the video information. This is not something where you're just going to check the boxes. In fact, our tests are purposely tough. And part of the reason for that is we don't want you to be a test taker that just looks up the answer and, oh, it checks it. We want you to be able to think through the problem. And it really pisses some people off, but that's life. The problem is presented to you, and you got to look at that and go through the systems in your mind and say, okay, I understand these things about the systems. Here's what's out of whack. Okay, there's the problem. Now I know what to do for a solution. Boom. But if you just are someone that checks, looking for the easy way out, checking the boxes, well, then you're not going to internalize this. And we want you to internalize this. Even though you have the DVDs to fall back on, that's great. But I want you to be a gunsmith in the moment, so that literally you can be away from your shop, pick up that gun. Somebody just said, hey, it's having a problem with X or Y. And you should probably in most cases without even any tools. be able to basically do a forensic analysis of what's going on. And you may not be able to fix it right then, but you can probably tell them or have a good idea, I think it's this or this, and you'll be right. Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea of a range, how long it take. Oscar's saying, my favorite rifle is the M1 Garand. What types of training do you offer in the M1? And thanks for the webinar. Oscar, you're welcome. We have several courses in the M1 Garand. We have an armor's course in the M1 Garand that goes all the way through design function. We have it covered within the professional gunsmithing course, which again is at a higher level. We have a course on building an M1 Garand from parts kit. And we have a course on how to do an M1 Garand trigger job. So we got the M1 Garand well covered. Scott is saying, is it a good idea to work with a gunsmith? You can find one to work with you. Maybe. This is a big yes and no. I worked with gunsmiths in some shops that got trained elsewhere, and they did not understand design, function, and repair. And so I ended up doing a lot of the work. There are gunsmiths that you could work under that may not know how to teach. They could be a great gunsmith, but they may not know how to teach. So you really need to learn yourself, have the ability to be independent if that's what you need to be successful. If you can work a good relationship with another gunsmith, I think that's fine too. And it could, somebody that's already established might make it easier for you to grow. So like most things, it depends, right? There's several different options for you, but I'd be very careful who you did work with, because your reputation, if they're lousy, could be clouded. You don't want that. If Scott, again, if a pawn shop has just a frame for sale, is that something to start learning with? Sure. If you want to build up a frame, someone has a 1911 frame and you want to buy a bag of parts from somewhere and you transfer the frame to you, properly, and you assemble it, cool. You'll learn a lot. There's a lot to learn by repairing or buying even broken guns, going through the course. And that's something you can do. You can you can go to gun shows, set up a table, and if you've got a license, or, well, in some states, even private sales you can do, where you can just advertise, say, I'm buying broken guns just for my learning. There's a lot of people when you're gunsmithing, that'll be happy to pull things out of the woodwork that you've never seen before. It's a lot of cool stuff will come to you, and you'll get stuff to work on. But pawn shops are a place you could also offer to do business. Once you have your FFL, you can say, look, I will, for a flat fee, do a cleaning and a safety evaluation on this firearm. Because after all, Mr. Pawnbroker, you're putting that on the wall to sell it, and that might be a liability. You should at least have it cleaned and checked out, don't you think? That's a pretty easy sale. So, do you have to have a CCP to get the course and an FFL? Neither. As long as you are not a prohibited person and you're over the age of 18. If you're under 18, and we've had people as young as 13 go through the course, you need to have a guardian or parental letter. If you're over 18, our only requirements are that, number one, you are not a felon, and number two, that you're not a prohibited person, because those people cannot, in most cases, get a federal firearms license. And we want you to be successful. So one of the first things, I don't want to, get you enrolled in a course where you can't be successful. Everybody else can enroll. I had a paramedic enroll that didn't even own a firearm, but he worked in New York, and he knew he wanted to get out of that profession. He was fascinated with firearms. He had the resources to do it. He had the time to study when he wasn't immediately on call. So he started going through it and became a gunsmith. Michael can assemble guns for customers with an 01 if they provide the parts. Yeah, now this is a little bit of a gray area. So once again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not providing you legal advice. I'm providing you with my understanding and experience. So somebody buys a strip receiver, maybe then they buy it from you. Well, and there's a transfer. And let's talk AR lower right now, because that's kind of what we're talking about in general these days. Could be other guns though. Could be a strip Remington 700 action. Could be a 1911 frame, whatever. But let's say an AR lower, and they buy it the lower through you, and you 4473 it to them. They own it. They take possession of it. They take it off your property. Now they want it built. They bring it back, and they either bring you parts or they ask you to buy the parts. Well, if I was going to buy the parts, I would not take in the work at that time. I'd buy the parts. I'd provide them the parts. I'd have them take the parts away, take possession of the parts, and then if they wanted to bring that back to me and I charge them an assembly fee, gunsmithing, and maybe do a smooth and tune or trigger job or whatever on it, I could do that, and I would not be manufacturing. What you want to avoid is buying in lower receivers and piles of parts and assembling them and putting them on the rack and then selling them. They're going to consider that manufacturing, and you need a manufacturing license, partially because there's a tax situation there. When a strip lower is sold, there's no taxation on it. So it's just a frame. It is considered the firearm, but they don't pay excise tax. They only pay excise tax on completed firearms. And some people try to get around that 11% by doing some trickery, and they're going to get themselves in trouble. I do not recommend it. So you don't want to be in the position of buying in frames, buying in parts, assembling the guns, putting them and selling them retail and not paying the excise. You need to be the manufacturer, do that, pay the excise tax. If someone brings you a strip lower and brings you parts, you can do the assembly that's theirs, right? You're just doing, as long as it's not prohibited in your state, so on and so on. But I'm talking about it generally gunsmithing. And I told you the other scenario where you might be selling the parts. I don't want to sell you all the parts and then have you hand it right back to me and assemble it. I think that's too close of timeline. I would like to have enough separation and separation of intent. Okay? Anonymous is asking, Gene, if my city doesn't allow an FFL, would it be worth suing them? I've had other gunsmiths suggest that. Attorneys are expensive, and usually the one that loses is the guy paying the attorney. So, and cities and so on have got a lot of attorneys on staff, and they're paying them with your tax dollars, by the way. So generally you can get, what's the saying? You can get more flies with honey or something like that, or whatever. I would look to see how can I. If I'm doing work for the local department, if I'm associated with a shooting range, if I've got my FFL at the shooting range and I'm going to be doing repairs there, work the problem and see whether or not there's another way before you get into conflict. I'm not saying don't do it, because there is a time where we have to stand up for our rights and for what is right and for legitimate businesses. But it would not be the first place I go. And also, unless you have deep pockets, which then God bless you, go ahead, fight. But you might want to consider other alternatives like I just suggested, or even, can you be just outside the city limits? Another city, what, so those are just a few ideas. All right, guys, we've been at it for almost an hour. I'd love to answer any more questions that you have. I think we've covered a lot. I'm down to the last of the questions right now, but let me just kind of do a quick flyover for you. So our mission for the last 26 years has been to educate people in design, function, and repair so they can become real gunsmiths. And then we build on that with all the knowledge of machining, welding, heat treating, building custom firearms of all different types. We go deep into the AR-15, the 1911, the Glock. We have a complete course on those, building custom, Remington 700 actions, building custom Mausers. It goes on. And we've spent all these years developing and upgrading what we do. And we're here to support you. So we've been around the block. We've done it ourselves. I'm personally, like I said, a gunsmith. And the staff members, Jack Landis, who handles a lot of your questions, Robert Dunn will handle a lot of your questions, Ken Brooks, one of our instructors, Mark Foster, Fred Zaglin, Gene Shuey, and so on, are various instructors. They are gunsmiths, and they're true experts in this industry. They're willing to share with you. And so we want you to be successful. We want to preserve the firearms, preserve our rights through this knowledge. We invite you to become students. We do have a 1-year money-back guarantee that very few people ever take us up on it. The only reason we do that is to alleviate any angst somebody have about, is this right for me? Because we want it to be right for you. We have the education, like I said, we have a packet on with every level of course on getting your federal firearms license. And we also have at our master level and above, the entire business success package. So a lot of resources here, a few things to look at. If you haven't already watched the video at gunsmithingcourse.com, that does kind of a whole long in-depth flyover of the course, and gives you some examples of what you'll learn. At proguncleaningsystem.com is a little short 5-minute video that gives you an idea how you can do these ultrasonic cleanings and use that as a stepping stone to bring in more money and more work. And if you have more questions, guys, just ask your student advisor. So give us a call at 1-800-797-0867. Ask to speak to a student advisor. Right now we have a Christmas special going on if you get enrolled before the end of the year. A couple last things that have come in. Scott, it says, thank you for the information. I'll start the paperwork for the FFL so it is in place while taking the course. You've done a great job. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you for that. And Derek Stevenson said, thank you, Gene, for doing this for informational webinar. Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. The goal here is to help you become one of us. So best wishes to you on that. And we're here to support you in any way we can. So take care, guys. Good night.